Hi, I'm Katie from What Katie Did, and this week I'm talking about wearing corsets during the summer and during heat waves, and giving you my hints and tips. But first of all, have a look at this little baby. I actually am in the process of moving house, so I'm in the process of moving to Somerset along with the rest of the fashion industry, right? But there was this old reclamation yard and I found this in it, and there was no price. It's this massive brooch with a dragon on it. And when I asked about the price, they said it was £3 or between $4 and $5. So I snapped it up, and it reminds me of Butler and Wilson's dragon earrings, which are huge dragon earrings. And I never bought them because I thought they'd kill my ears. And just this morning when I put this on, I was looking inside, and there is a tiny little stamp saying Butler and Wilson. So it is actually Butler and Wilson. And I'm pretty sure they made a smaller pair of earrings, so I'm going to see if I can get those as well, because the brooch I really like. I'm not sure how often I'm going to wear it because it really is huge and it's dragging my dress down, but yeah, I love it. It looked great on a really heavy winter coat, which will keep it in place. But yeah, it's super cute. So anyway, I'm supposed to be talking about summer corsets today, and mesh corsets come up so often. And at What Katie Did, we don't actually make mesh corsets at the moment. And I say at the moment because just a couple of weeks ago I found the most beautiful sheer mesh, and it's so sheer you can't see the grain on the fabric, and we're sampling with that at the moment, and hopefully it'll work out. But at the moment we don't actually make mesh corsets. And the reason for this is a few years ago there was a huge trend for sports mesh corsets, which is mesh like this. And the idea is because it is a mesh, it breathes and it keeps you cooler. But what everyone failed to realise is that there is a stretch to sports mesh. So if you look closely, you can see that the fabric gives, even though it's not officially stretch. If a fabric isn't officially stretch, it's still got some kind of mechanical stretch, which means that due to the weave there's always some kind of give, and that's what this corset has here. So there's a give to the main corset body, but there is no give to the waist. So the waist tape is there, and it's a gross grain ribbon waist tape, so that won't stretch, whereas this will. And what I found when I was wearing it is it just was so painful to wear because all the pressure was on the waist, and it made me look like I was just squeezed like a sausage in the middle. It didn't work at all. It was so uncomfortable. But that is why we don't make mesh corsets, is because I mean, I wear corsets every day and I couldn't wear this. It was just so painful. So that is why we don't make corsets at the moment out of mesh. Making corsets out of mesh isn't a new thing, and you know, 10 years ago we did used to make a very fine mesh corset, and it was made of a lighter nylon. You see my brooch dipping down now. A lighter nylon, and the issue with that is it wasn't quite as durable as we'd liked. And yes, I used to wear it for like one season, so I used to wear it for the summer, and then by the end of it, it was not really that wearable anymore. And with customers, we didn't get a huge amount of issues with it. Most of our corsets have goring on the hips, so you can see the goring, there. And when you make it from sheer fabric, obviously that's a weak spot. So with super sheer fabric that was prone to fraying, that was an issue. And although it wasn't a huge issue, that's why we stopped doing them. But looking at the past, yes, of course, mesh corsets were made, and here's one of mine from the very early 20th century. And this is by P&N Corsets, which is a brand which started, I can't remember where it was, somewhere outside of New York, and then they moved to New York, and then like all these other corset and lingerie brands, they all got bought by other lingerie brands and slowly disappeared. So this is my P&N corset, and it's got the brand stamped inside. And yes, it does have the tape inside, but what you have to remember about corsets back, you know, in the 19th century and the earlier 20th century is that having a very defined waist was unusual. Like the corsets used to be, before people wore bras every day, the corsets were made to support your body and support your torso. So they weren't meant to have a big reduction on the waist. So if you look at vintage corsets, the shape is very up and down, you know, straight up and down, as compared to, you know, modern corsets, which are really designed to cinch you in. So with old-fashioned corsets, with antique corsets, they don't have that thing that really nips you on the waist, because they're not designed to nip you in as much as modern corsets are, simply because, you know, they weren't, the whole waist reduction thing is always more of a fetish thing than a fashion thing, and it's always been that case. And for the normal person on the street, they would be wearing a corset as an alternative to a bra. You have to remember, back in the day, that women wouldn't have access to contraception, so they would have been having a lot more babies than they do today, or they'd be pregnant a lot more of the time than they are today. So, and plus, say, especially if you were poor, you'd still have to work and keep going. So the corset would support the body, it would also support the bust, and it would support your back, and the actual really cinched hourglass shape, that wasn't, you know, that wasn't as popular, as I say, as it was today. And I know it's not that popular today either, but, you know, that's what corsets were about. They weren't about that extreme hourglass shape. So that's my little talk about mesh corsets. And the other thing with mesh corsets is they don't necessarily keep you that much cooler than a traditional 3-layer corset, because you're still supposed to wear a liner with them. And of course, this is where I go into on Friday about the whole sweat issue. So I'll be returning on Friday and talking about how to keep cool in a corset, and why mesh corsets really aren't the answer.